that I think this is pretty obvious why. But the fact that it's changing a bit, I think, I think that's a sign of also, I think it is true, learning from feminism, learning from post-colonial, and applying those lessons to experiences of class. I think that is happening.
I think class appeared early and stayed in Victorian studies, largely because of the Birmingham School.
Right.
And Victorian studies, the journal, because it was always open to class studies.
Exactly.
So that you have certain avenues that are open and invite scholars to contribute.
Right.
Yeah, there seems to be in Romanticism kind of a contradiction or two trends. One seems to be more, you might say, liberating of the individual, or sort of aimed toward the future, a brighter future, and then the other that sort of looks back to the past. Like you mentioned several references, like to the moral economy and trying to sort of recapture, resistance to capitalism by kind of returning to the better past. Should we consider Romanticism essentially more of this sort of backward-looking movement, or is there some?
Well, I think it's both.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both, and even the backward look is highly selective. They're picking things that they want, and it's very much an idealized, very highly selective looking back. So when the Luddites are appealing to certain precedents, they're ignoring others too. so they're accepting a lot of the democratic logic, which didn't exist in Elizabethan times. So it's a mix. Yes.
In one of my courses right now, we're learning about Keats, Wordsworth, and but would you say, like, with Wordsworth, like, he's such an amazing poet as it is, but then you also see, like, he contradicts himself in some ways, such as he gives his voice to the people who, like, he's all about individualism and beauty and nature and that, but then at the same time, he doesn't give them their own voice. Like, how would you explain that? Like,
well, I don't know if that's. I don't know if that I'd accept that, because I think that he does both. I mean, he explores subjectivity in great depth in something like the Prelude. I mean, that's what that poem's all about, or Tintern Abbey. But on the other hand, I mean, a poem like Michael or The Ruined Cottage, I mean, that is a poem about lamenting the destruction of community. I mean, those poems are about. That's what the poems are about. So I don't think at all he's not giving voice to those. I mean, it is ventriloquized. I mean, true enough. I mean, he himself is not an agricultural laborer, to be sure. But he's writing a poem in which he has characters, and he has the peddler, who is the philosophical voice in the Ruined Cottage. So so he's giving voice to democratic energies, and attached to an idea of community. So it's not. So he's doing both things. Yes.
Yes, sir. You mentioned a poet that John Duck killed himself.
Oh, Stephen Duck.
Stephen?
Yeah.
It's just
Stephen
Duck,
Duck.
like D-U-C-K?
D-U-C-K, like quack quack. Yeah.
What was the name of this poem you mentioned?
Thresher's Labor.
Freshers.
Freshers. Thresher. And there was a very good response by a woman labor poet to his, by Mary Collier, who responded to it, because she didn't like his representations of women, and so she had her own text, which is really good. I registered my annoyance at scholars who assume that Stephen Duck, he killed himself because he betrayed his class, or he was too ambitious, or some moral narrative of why he killed himself. How do they know how he killed himself? I mean, I think that is so facile. But you see it all over the place when Stephen Duck gets mentioned. They assume, oh yeah, well, Stephen Duck. Of course he killed himself. what else could he have done? Writing oration notes like that. Any other questions? Yeah.
Back to Wordsworth for a moment.
Yeah.
In the preface, when he talks about using the language of the lower classes, but in parentheses, purged of all its true defects.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that in any way a reference to this laboring class tradition of poetry that you're discussing, or do you take that as a reference to the actual speech of the working class? In the section on poetic diction.
I know. Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, the traditional working class poetry itself was fairly refined. I mean, Mary Lepore and Stephen Duck too. I mean, Mary Collier. They all have, fairly refined diction. I mean, in the sense of it's not John Clare, a different story. Well, once you get to John Clare, you do get very colloquial language, and a lot of it is unrefined. But prior to him, so I think I tend to think it's just the poetic norm that's the assumption that even using that language, you have to clean it up to some extent. But it is different, and in fact, John Clare had quite a conflict with his editor and his patron, because his editor kept correcting his grammar and his diction. And so, oh, no, you can't say that word. Any others?